At 72, Ruth felt invisible. Her children had their own lives, her phone barely rang, and each day felt like a quiet echo of the one before. No one warned her that aging could feel this empty, but one small decision, something she almost dismissed as silly, ended up reigniting her sense of connection, purpose, and even joy. What changed? In this video, we'll share the real-life story of Ruth and the 5 powerful shifts that helped her break free from loneliness. If you've ever felt forgotten, this story might just change how you see the years ahead. Before we begin, if you're new here, welcome. This channel is all about helping seniors rediscover strength, purpose, and joy in every chapter of life. If that sounds like something you need, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a video. Your support helps us keep creating content that matters. Now, let's begin Ruth's story. Ruth had always been the kind of woman who lit up a room. She was the first to show up with soup when someone was sick, the one who remembered birthdays, anniversaries, little things no one else did. But at 72, life looked different. Her husband had passed 7 years earlier. Her children, grown, married, scattered across cities. They loved her, she knew that, but love didn't always come with phone calls, or visits, or invitations. Her house was quiet, too quiet. Mornings started the same way. Instant coffee, lukewarm toast. She'd sit by the window and watch people pass by. A mother pushing a stroller, a jogger with headphones, delivery vans. Life, moving on. She tried to keep herself busy, a little gardening, rewatching the same old shows. But every day felt like a loop. Breakfast, dishes, silence, dinner, sleep. Sometimes she'd catch her reflection in the mirror and feel startled. Who is that woman? Once Ruth had dreams, plans, stories. Now she mostly counted the days between her doctor's appointments. She didn't complain. She'd been raised not to. But deep inside, she felt like she was disappearing. "I feel like wallpaper," she whispered one night, alone at the kitchen table. "Always there, but no one really notices." That quiet ache, the feeling of being invisible, it grew slowly, not like a storm, but like fog, creeping in, software, heavy, unshakable. Friends she once had either passed, moved away, or lost touch. Church was harder to attend with her aching knees, and with every year the world felt louder, faster, and less made for someone like her. No one told her aging would feel like this. She thought the hardest part would be the physical stuff, the stiffness, the forgetfulness, but it wasn't. It was the silence, the stillness, the feeling that you could vanish and maybe no one would notice for days. That was Ruth's life at 72, until one ordinary moment, one unexpected shift, changed everything. It was her birthday. Ruth had turned 73 that day. She didn't expect a party. She wasn't asking for balloons or cake or surprises. Just something. She wore a soft blue sweater her late husband once said made her eyes sparkle. Set the table for 2, out of habit mostly, made her favorite tea, lit a candle even. She waited. The phone rang just once. Her daughter. A quick, "Happy birthday, Mom," between work meetings. "I'll call you again later," she said. She didn't. A card came in the mail. No handwriting, just printed words. From her insurance provider. No visits, no dinners, no hugs. As the day wore on, the silence in her house got louder. She sat on the couch with the candle still burning beside her, uneaten shortbread cookies on a plate, and that's when it hit her. Not all at once, but like a quiet flood rising from her chest. This was her life now. No one was coming. No one had even planned to. She tried to swallow it down, the shame, the hurt, the loneliness. But it cracked through. Her hands trembled, her eyes welled up, and for the first time in years, Ruth cried, not for her age, not for her aching knees, but for the realization that she had slowly become invisible in the very life she built. "Is this all there is?" she whispered to the empty room. "Is this what the rest of my years will look like?" That night wasn't dramatic, no big scene, but it was the breaking point. The quiet kind of pain that makes you decide something has to change. And that decision, that soft flicker of, maybe it's not too late, that was the beginning. A few days after her birthday, Ruth was standing in her front yard pulling weeds from the flower bed when her neighbor Alice walked by. Alice was in her late 60s, always cheerful, always busy. She stopped, leaned on the fence, and said, "Hey, Ruth, have you ever heard of the Wednesday group at the rec center? They do this thing where seniors get together and tell stories from their lives. It's free, nothing fancy, just people talking." Ruth chuckled. "What would I even say?" Alice smiled. "You'd be surprised what people want to hear." Ruth didn't think much of it. She nodded, thanked her, and went back to her weeding. But that night, sitting alone at the kitchen table, her mind kept going back to those words. People telling stories. Nothing fancy, just talking. Could it really matter? By the following Wednesday, Ruth was still unsure. She paced by the front door 3 times, even changed her sweater twice. Her heart raced like she was going on a first date. When she walked into the small sunlit room at the community center, there were about 10 other people seated in a circle. Some were laughing, some knitting, one man napping in his chair. It felt warm, lived in. When it was her turn, she hesitated. Then she talked about her first teaching job. A small town, a chalkboard with a crack down the center. The boy who brought her a pencil every morning because he thought that's what made her smile. She hadn't told that story in 40 years. And yet when she did, something happened. Someone laughed, another nodded. One woman whispered, "That reminds me of my husband." For the first time in a long time, Ruth wasn't just a shadow in the room. She was seen, heard, remembered. That single decision, to say yes, to show up, to speak, didn't feel big at the time, but it cracked the shell she'd been living in. It reminded her that her life still mattered. Her memories weren't just fading echoes. They were bridges, waiting to connect her to someone else. And that's how everything began to change. After that first visit to the storytelling group, Ruth felt something she hadn't felt in years. A spark. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, like a lamp in a dark room slowly being turned up. And over the next few months, Ruth didn't just attend. She changed, one small shift at a time. Here are the 5 emotional shifts that helped her rebuild her life, and how they might just do the same for you. Ruth used to sit by the phone, waiting for someone to check in, waiting for her daughter to remember, waiting for life to come find her. But one morning she looked at the phone and said, "Why am I waiting to feel loved?" That day she picked it up and made 3 calls, one to a niece she hadn't spoken to in a year, one to her old church friend, and one to the community center to volunteer. Not all of them answered, but one did, and that was enough. Ruth realized connection doesn't come to you. You create it. And with every call, every message, she began to stitch herself back into the lives she thought she'd been forgotten by. For years, Ruth had kept her memories to herself, afraid they'd seem boring, outdated, or irrelevant. But in the storytelling circle, something changed. She talked about her childhood during the war, about her first kiss in the rain, about raising 3 kids with more love than money. To her surprise, people leaned in. They laughed, some cried. One woman told her, "I wish my mom had told me things like this before she passed." Ruth realized something powerful. Your story is your legacy. It's not just something you carry, it's something others need. By sharing her life, she found that her past had purpose, and it gave her present a whole new meaning. At the group, Ruth met a woman named Gloria. Gloria had fiery red hair, bad knees, and a wicked sense of humor. They sat together every Wednesday. At first, it was casual. Then one day, Ruth asked, "Would you want to come over for tea sometime?" That one invitation turned into weekly visits, movie nights, and walks in the park. And Ruth learned something beautiful. You don't need a crowd. You just need one true connection. Someone who listens. Someone who remembers what kind of cookies you like. Someone who says, "See you next week," and means it. Their friendship didn't erase the loneliness. but it softened it, gave it edges, made life warmer. There were weeks Ruth didn't feel like going. It was cold. Her joints hurt. She didn't think she had anything to say, but she went anyway. And something unexpected happened. When she missed one session because of a cold, someone called her. "We missed you," they said. Those 3 words stayed with her. "We missed you." It had been so long since she felt missed. By simply showing up week after week, Ruth built something she never planned for. Belonging. Not the kind you ask for, the kind you earn just by being present. And every week her confidence grew. She spoke more, laughed louder, and when new people joined, she was the one welcoming them in. For so long, Ruth had defined herself as mom and wife. And when those roles faded, she wasn't sure who she was anymore. But as the months passed, something awakened. She remembered she loved painting, so she bought a small watercolor set. She signed up for a beginner's Spanish class. "Just to stretch my brain," she'd say with a grin. She even started writing small poems, one of which was published in the local newsletter. Ruth wasn't trying to be young again. She was just trying to feel alive. And in doing so, she discovered the most powerful truth of all. You are never too old to rediscover who you are. Because your life isn't over when roles change. Sometimes that's when it finally begins. Through 5 simple emotional shifts, none of them fancy or expensive, Ruth changed the way she experienced the world. She didn't move cities. She didn't join a dating app or take a cruise. She just chose to step back into life, one small act at a time. And those small shifts, they rewrote the next chapter of her story. It's been a year since Ruth first walked into that little community room with shaking hands and a guarded heart. Now, she walks in like she owns the place. She co-leads the Wednesday storytelling group. She starts each session with a new poem or memory, and every week, someone thanks her for sharing what they were too afraid to say out loud. Her phone? It rings more often now, not because others changed, but because she did. She calls, she texts, she sends birthday cards and funny notes in the mail. People remember her because she reminds them that they matter too. She and Gloria, her red-haired, loud-laughing friend, go walking in the park every Sunday. They have a favorite bench, a favorite coffee spot, and inside jokes that feel like home. Ruth still has hard days, but she's no longer waiting for someone to notice her life. She's living it. When asked what changed most, Ruth smiled and said, "I stopped shrinking myself just because no one was looking." To anyone watching this who feels alone, forgotten, or invisible, Ruth's message is simple. You still matter. You still have something to say. And it is never too late to be remembered for who you are and loved for who you're becoming. If you've made it this far, maybe part of Ruth's story reminded you of you. Maybe you've been waiting for the call, the invitation, the moment where someone sees you again. But here's the truth Ruth learned. Sometimes you have to take the first small step, even if your voice shakes, even if your heart doubts it will matter. Because it will. One phone call, one visit, one story. That's how everything begins to change. If this story touched you, comment with a seedling below to show that you're ready to grow again, just like Ruth did. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss the stories, insights, and hope we share here. Your support helps us keep reaching the people who need it most. You're not invisible. You're just one small step away from being seen again.